Breaking old patterns is hard because patterns are not just habits. They are survival strategies, emotional comfort zones, identity anchors, nervous system conditioning, and repeated pathways in the brain all woven together. A person can hate a pattern and still feel emotionally attached to it at the same time. That is where people get confused. They think, if this hurts me so much, why do I keep going back to it? Because familiarity feels safer than uncertainty. Even pain can become familiar. And the human mind often chooses familiar pain over unfamiliar growth. This is one of the deepest truths about human behavior. A toxic relationship can feel safer than a healthy love. Chaos can feel more normal than peace. Struggle can feel more comfortable than stability. Overthinking can feel safer than trusting. People can become addicted to what drains them simply because it is what they know. The drain is designed to automate repeated behavior. Whatever you repeat, your brain labels as, this matters, keep this accessible. So eventually, the behavior becomes automatic. That is why people say, I don't even know why I did that. Because the action bypassed conscious thinking. Patterns become neurological shortcuts. The brain loves efficiency. If you think the same thoughts daily, react the same way daily, choose the same type of people daily, your brain creates stronger and faster pathways for those reactions. Like a dirt road becoming a highway. And then comes the dangerous part. The pattern starts feeling like personality. I'm just like this. This is who I am. I've always sabotaged things. I always end up with the wrong people. I always quit. I always go back. No. That is not identity. That is repetition mistaken for identity. That realization alone can change someone's life. Many old patterns were born in protection. Some people learned silence because speaking caused rejection. Some learned anger because vulnerability felt unsafe. Some learned people-pleasing because love felt conditional. Some learned emotional shutdown because emotions were ignored. Some learned hyper-independence because nobody came to the rescue. The pattern may be unhealthy now, but at one point, it protected them. That is why healing requires compassion, because you cannot sustainably change what you only hate. You must understand it first. Another reason patterns are hard to break, the nervous system becomes attached to emotional familiarity. And this is huge. Some people grew up in tension, unpredictability, criticism, shouting, instability, emotional inconsistency, and their nervous system adapted to that frequency. So when life becomes peaceful, they unconsciously create problems. Not because they want suffering, no, but because peace feels unfamiliar to the body. Their system interprets calm as something is missing. This is why some people ruin good relationships, why they self-sabotage opportunities, why they create drama before success, why they pull away when things get healthy. The hardest system says, this does not feel like home. even if old home was painful. People think change is only mental. It is not. It is neurological, emotional, behavioral, spiritual, chemical, emotional, environmental. Sometimes a person is not weak. They're just conditioned. And conditioning is powerful. Patterns are also reinforced by environment. If you are trying to grow while surrounded by people committed to staying the same, the old version of you gets constantly reactivated. Some people around you benefit from your old patterns. The old you was easier to control. The old you tolerated disrespect. The old you stayed small. The old you carried everybody. The old you accepted crumbs. The old you did not challenge dysfunction. Growth changes relationship dynamics, and not everybody celebrates that. Sometimes breaking patterns means grieving people. Another powerful reason: patterns provide predictability. Even destructive routines create a sense of control. If someone expects abandonment, they may leave first. If someone expects disappointment, they stop trying. If someone expects rejection, they avoid vulnerability. Why? Because if they predict the pain, they feel more prepared for it. Humans often repeat patterns trying to master old wounds. That is why people sometimes date the same person in different bodies, same dysfunction, just a different face. The subconscious keeps saying, maybe this time we'll fix it. But healing does not come from relaying the wound. Healing comes from becoming aware of it. Breaking patterns also feels difficult because growth initially feels worse before it feels better. That part nobody talks about enough. When you stop people-pleasing, you suddenly feel guilty. When you set boundaries, you feel mean. When you stop over-explaining, you feel rude. When you choose peace, chaos suddenly feels tempting. When you stop chasing unhealthy validation, you feel empty for a while. Why? Because your brain is withdrawing from familiarity. The same way muscles ache when they are rebuilding, your mind aches when it is rewiring. People quit too early because they mistake discomfort for failure. But discomfort is often evidence that change is happening. Another deep truth: old patterns are often emotionally rewarded. Complaining can bring attention. Victimhood can bring sympathy. Avoidance can temporarily reduce anxiety. Anger can create a false feeling of power. Isolation can prevent rejection. Perfectionism can create temporary validation. Every pattern has a payoff, even destructive ones. If you do not identify the hidden reward, the pattern keeps returning. That is why awareness matters so much. And here is another layer. Your identity always fights to stay constant. If someone has believed for years, I am worthy, I am broken, I never succeed, I'm always overlooked, then success, love, peace, and growth can feel psychologically threatening because it conflicts with the internal story. People do not just behave according to desire. They behave according to identity. So, real transformation happens when identity shifts. Not, I'm trying to stop self-sabotaging, but I am becoming someone who protects their peace. Not, I'm trying to stop toxic relationships, but I no longer abandon myself to others. That changes everything. And breaking patterns is really one dramatic moment. It is usually small repeated choices. One boundary, one pause before reacting, one honest conversation, one day not returning to the thing that keeps hurting you, one moment choosing differently. Healing is repetitive, so is destruction. You become what you repeatedly practice. One of the most powerful things a person can realize is this: you are not fighting only behavior. You are fighting familiarity, memory, conditioning, emotional attachment, identity, comfort, fear, and sometimes grief. Because every new version of you requires the death of an old one. And even unhealthy versions of ourselves are hard to let go of when they have helped us survive. But old patterns can absolutely be broken. The brain can rewire. The nervous system can heal. Identity can evolve. And cycles can be broken, and they certainly can end. A person becomes completely different over time through awareness, repetition, honesty, accountability, environment changes, and intentional choices. Not overnight, but absolutely. And maybe the most hopeful truth of all is this: the fact that a pattern was learned means that it can also be unlearned. That should give people tremendous hope.